This morning we're going to talk about persistence. Ironically, it would seem that I have a poster in the background actually which says persistence. So this is something that I would have gotten many years ago, which I didn't actually realize up until now. I've just seen it in the background. Well, obviously I see it every day, but it's something that, it's like our habitual behavior, like what we spoke about yesterday when we talk about our habits and our habitual behaviors. So for sure, it's only something that I've now recognized in the background because I'm aware of today we're talking about persistence. So for the moment anyway, we have spoken yesterday. We went through a lot of goals and mindset and what the mindset is required in order to be able to bring yourself forward to your goals and what you need to do to allow yourself carry yourself forward in the mindset for your goals, be that personal or professional, either or. So today we're going to talk about persistence, and persistence is all about being persistent. So persistence is a state of mind, and therefore it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based on definitive causes. Among them would be these. So persistence would be one, a definitiveness of purpose, knowing what one wants in the first and perhaps the most important step toward the development of persistence. A strong motive forces one to surmount many difficulties. Two, or B, would be desire. It is comparatively easy to acquire and maintain a persistence in pursuing the object of intense desire. Three, self-resilience. Belief in one's ability to carry out a plan encourages one to follow the plan through with persistence. In other words, self-reliance can be developed through affirmations. We then talk about D, definitiveness of plans. Organized plans, even though they may be weak or entirely impractical, encourages persistence. We talk about then, we go to E, which is accurate knowledge. So knowing that one's plans are sound based upon experience or observation encourages persistence. Guessing instead of knowing destroys persistence. F, cooperation. Sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tends to develop persistence. G, willpower. The habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon building of plans for the attainment of definitive purpose leads to persistence. And finally, we talk about H as habit. Persistence is a direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, the worst of all the enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Everyone who has seen active service in war knows this. So again, let's explain this in a little bit more detail. When we talk about definition of purpose, you need to know what you want first. And this is obviously the most important step, because you need to have a strong motive that forces you to move towards exactly what it is that you want from a persistent point of view. Desire, obviously you've got to want to do it. If you don't have any desire there, you're not going to do it, or you're going to give up. Self-resilience, the belief in your own ability that you can do it, and then to maintain the persistence in pursuing it. Self-reliance, the belief in one's ability to carry out the plan, because obviously you've got to know that you have the ability to do it, and by having the ability and knowing you have the ability, that's going to encourage you to do it anyway. Definitiveness of plans, again, organize yourself on the basis of what it is and what steps you need to do to carry that forward. Accurate knowledge, if you don't have the knowledge, you gain the knowledge to allow yourself to move forward with that. And then cooperation, on the basis of sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tends to develop persistence, okay? And then we've got the willpower. You've got to want to do it. I know we mentioned that earlier when we talked about desire, but the willpower is something that obviously forces you or allows you to carry that forward. And then obviously habit. We spoke about habits yesterday, and we spoke about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and the way a habit can be formed and the way you can create a new habit to get rid of an old habit. Because persistence is a direct result of habit. When you're persistent with something and you continually do it, well, then you're forming the new habit, and you're creating or getting rid of the old habit and forming the new habit. Okay, so let's talk now about what symptoms of lack of persistence may be. So know who you are, and what you are capable of doing. These are weaknesses which may be mastered by all who accumulate riches. One, failure to recognize or to clearly define exactly what you want. Two, procrastination. Without with or without cause, usually backed up with formidable array of aliases and excuses. People tend to find reasons why they shouldn't do it, and that can generally surround the procrastination end of it. Lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. So, in other words, you may not want to do it, but it might be a factor, it might be a key ingredient that you do actually need to look at gaining knowledge to get to where you want to go. Indecision, the habit of passing the buck on all occasions instead of facing issues squarely, also backed by other areas. But indecision is the main thing because obviously, if you keep passing or making excuses or passing the buck to somebody else, that's where obviously an array of persistence can affect you. The habit of relying upon others instead of creating definitive plans for the solution of the problems. So again, when you're referring to others or blaming others for situations that have occurred that stop you from moving forward. Uh, Self-satisfaction. This is a little but remedy for the affliction and is no hope for those who suffer from it. So obviously you got to clearly, if you find that satisfaction is a habit or a paradigm, well then use the what we spoke about yesterday to create the new habit to allow yourself not become so self-satisfied. Seven, indifference, usually reflected in one's readiness to compromise on all occasions rather than meet opposition and fight it. Because again, you're going to have issues, you're going to have problems. So it is important that I suppose you utilize that, or you know that it's going to happen and you're prepared to stand up to it and fight it. Weakness over desire due to negligent or choice of that motivates you to impel your action. So again, don't let the desire be weak. Create the desire of what it is that you want and stick with it, because obviously desire can be something that will carry you forward. Willingness, even eagerness to quit at the first sign or to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the six basic fears. Because again, when it comes to your willingness to do something, it is your desire that's in place. But if you don't have enough motivation, you're going to give up at the first issue or the first problems that occur. So I suppose avoid that in a way and make a commitment that you're not going to let it affect you. Lack of organized plans placed in writing where they may be analyzed. So again, when you have something that's in writing and you put it down in writing, you read it regularly. Again, when we talk about yesterday and we talk about putting your plan together and the 6 steps that are associated with that, obviously you're writing out what your plan is. You're covering your steps on what it's going to be, and when you read that to yourself on a regular basis, then you're confirming in your own mind of how organized you are to get to where you want to go. Wishing instead of willing. Well, I suppose that is what it says it is. Wishing for something is never going to happen. And it's again when we talked about affirmations, it was the same scenario where people tend to look at the scenario and say, hoping and wishing for something, but it's never going to happen. You need to create the desire and the willingness to want it to happen and make it happen. And that's obviously the important part. The habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. Generally, absence of ambition to be or to do and to own. So again, when we talk about compromising with poverty instead of aiming to riches, this is a regular one for a lot of people because they concentrate on the area surrounding poverty. So be it house bills or be it they owe money or be it a little bit of negativity. But again, we spoke more about that yesterday from the mindset and how you should create the positivity to allow you to be positive or rise your vibration to be aware of your vibration and rise it up to allow you to not be thinking of the negative aspects, and therefore it'll carry you forward. Searching for all the shortcuts to riches, trying to get without giving, a fair equivalent usually reflected in the habit of gambling or to drive sharp bargains. So there's no need to do that because a lot of people will scrimp and save because of the fear of money. And generally that can be a paradigm in itself where, you have the fear of losing money, or the fear of lack of money, and the fear of not having enough money. So again, don't try to take shortcuts. There is no shortcuts. There's no quick rich schemes. Lots of people talk about them, but there is none. Unless you win the lotto. That's the only way around it. Everything is going to take some form of activeness involved in what you're going to have to do to accumulate wealth in some way. It's not going to be easy. And not only that, you got to remember that even if you accumulate wealth really, really quickly, you're going to probably lose it as quick as you gained it. And the reason being is because you're not in the right mindset. To earn 500,000 when you're used to earning 50,000, it's a completely different mindset. To earn €1,000,000 instead of 500,000, it's a different mindset. So you have to learn to adapt with the different aspects of the money that you're earning. And that's where we talk about the mindset, creating the mindset to allow you to be comfortable around what it is you want to earn, and then creating within your conscious and your subconscious mind, your conscious first and then pressing on your subconscious to allow yourself be in the mindset that's required for the amount of money that you want to acquire. So again, when you look at fear of criticism, this is a big one. So you talk about the failure to create plans and to put them into action because of what other people will think, say, or do. The enemy belongs at the head of the list because it generally exists in one's subconscious mind, where persistence is not recognized or presence is not recognized. So again, when we talk about the fear of criticism, it's because you're thinking about what somebody else might say, how they might criticize you or somebody else with something that you're doing. But you got to remember, if you have the knowledge, the desire, and the want to do it, well, then why would you be worried about what anybody else is going to say? Don't if you create the knowledge of what you need to do to carry you forward, well, then you don't have to worry about anybody else. You certainly don't have to put yourself in their shoes of what they're going to say, or will they talk ill of me, or will they criticize me, or be critical of what I'm saying or doing. Avoid that, because again, this is back to the mindset. It's in your conscious and your subconscious mind, more so your subconscious mind. It's just the way you currently think. When you learn how to think differently, you avoid that because you're thinking about what you need to do to bring yourself forward in whatever it is you're doing. So you forget about the fear of criticism. Again, when we talk about yesterday, and we're talking about affirmations, and again on Thursday we're going to be talking about tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to be talking about self-image. So self-image is one thing that lots of people need to improve upon, because it talks about criticism and people being critical, and you look at the outside world of the way the outside world is reflecting your inner world, but it's a reflection of what's going on inside you. But again, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, because that's when we're going to go through the self-image. So how to develop persistence, because obviously I've gone through some of the areas that, what persistence is and how it works, and some of the areas that affects you. But how can you develop it as a person? Well, the first thing you can do is to develop persistence. There are 4 simple steps which lead to the habit of persistence. They call for no great amount of intelligence and no particular amount of education whatsoever. There's no particular amount of education and but little time or effort. The necessary steps are as follows. So again, I have to emphasize, little or no time or effort is involved in this. It's all about you and how you want to, I suppose, develop your own persistence in whatever it is that you want to do. So the first one is a definitive purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. So that's about having your own purpose of what it is that you want to do, and the burning desire to bring you into that. So a definitive plan expressed in continuous action. So you have a definitive plan, and that's expressed by a continuous action of what you need to do. So you're putting a plan into action and then expressing all continuous action. So it means you're going to move forward with it. So that's an important aspect. And then 3, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including negative suggestions or relatives, friends, and acquaintances. So again, we spoke about this a short time ago. We're talking about where, your mindset on the basis of that you don't let your friends or relatives or anybody else around you change your mind on what it is that you want to do, or allow them to be influenced of what it is that you have decided to do. It's your decision to move forward with it. It's your decision that you have the knowledge, and then you've made a firm decision on to do that. So don't allow somebody else change your mind on that, because if you have the burning desire, it will work. If you let somebody else get in on your head or in your space, well, then obviously it's going to affect the outcome of what it is that you want to do. 4, a friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage one to follow through with both plan and purpose. So again, we've talked about this before. You need somebody that's going to help you along the road, encourage you, a bit like a mentor, I suppose. Somebody that can help you on the basis of that, 1, encourage you, and 2, guide you through to, I suppose, avoid some of the pitfalls that you may come up against, or you may have come up against without having, I suppose, prior knowledge. So I suppose that's persistence in its entirety for now. What I would ask everybody to do going forward is, 1, we obviously have a book, a workbook, which I can share with people at a later stage. But I would ask people, I suppose, to make a list of 5 things that you're going to persist with going forward. So I suppose maybe look at areas that you have not done before, something that you feel that you may have given up on, and then ask yourself why. Why have you given up, or why have is it a case of maybe somebody else has convinced you, or you went to somebody. So again, it could be an example, could be where I'll actually give you an example of something that happened to me. So I many years ago, I'm talking about 20 years ago, I looked at a property, and it was a property that was selling at the time for £34,000. And I went to my bank, I approached the bank, and I said, I want to buy this particular house in this particular area. The girl behind the reception in the bank, who was my bank manager at the time, and she had said to me, no, I don't advise you to do that. She said, that's not a great area, and blah, 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 blah. So I left, and I thought, great. I was after getting great advice, and I didn't go with it. About 3 months later, I think it was 3 to 6 months later, the same house was selling for 85,000. No, sorry, not the same house. In the area, similar houses were selling for £85,000. Now, I know the economy had something got to do with it as well, but it turns out that it was actually a pretty good area. And then I'd realised that, in fact, I had asked the advice from somebody that couldn't or wasn't qualified to give me the advice that I was looking for. Because, 1, no disrespect to the lady whatsoever, she was a bank manager, but what does she do? She lends money. She's not in the property game. She wasn't aware of properties, how they go up, how they go down, what areas were good, what areas get at. She based her decision to tell me something based on her own experience, or based on what she thought was right. But in fact, I had taken her advice on, which was the wrong advice. So I'd gotten knowledge from somebody that didn't know. So the moral of the story is that sometimes you can get advice from somebody, but it doesn't mean that they necessarily know what the answer should be. So I would seek advice from somebody that's in the know, that somebody is qualified to give you the right answer, because that's what's going to bring you forward. That's what's going to help you with you making your decisions. If you feel that you don't have the knowledge, you go to somebody that's qualified to is qualified to answer it. You ask them the question, and then you're getting the right advice. Now, it might not always be 100% all the time, but certainly go to somebody that has the knowledge for it. So again, I say, list out 5 things that you've not persisted with in the past, and that you're going to persist with in the future. That's going to help you carry forward. So look, let's move on now to procrastination. Procrastination is a little bit mixed up with persistence, because it's one of the same. If you don't persist with something, sometimes it's because of procrastination you tend to hold yourself back. So procrastination, is there something in your life that you've been putting off or holding you back on? Ask yourself and look at that. Maybe you're planning to start a big project next month. Perhaps you keep saying that you're going to do something, but you tend not to do it. Maybe it's a business, maybe it's a house, maybe it's something, but you'll always blame something else that's around you. You'll make an excuse. It could be COVID, it could be the economy, it could be the bank manager, it could be you're not enough money, whatever the reason. But again, when we talk about the 6 steps, procrastination is one of the very important ones, because you've got to remember, when you get through procrastination, or you fight through it, you get to the next side. You actually push yourself forward and don't allow it to change your mind. So let's have a look at some of the reasons. So if you have a tendency to put things off, there are 10 things that you can do to beat procrastination and enjoy a happier and fulfilling life. So what we have is, 1, we have make a decision. So this is my favorite way to overcome procrastination. Decision is the opposite of procrastination. Okay, just like right and left, up and down, hot and cold. there's procrastination, or you can procrastinate on both sides. To become more decisive, obviously we've gone through the Think and Grow Rich, which covers a lot of aspects of that. Read the chapter on decision, but don't worry, we're going to be going through decision on Thursday. And this is where it's going to help you going a long way and get you to move places a lot quicker. So number 2 would be to write it out. Set aside a little time and follow the 3-step process. When it comes to you're trying to make a decision on something, and that is get a sheet of paper, write out how you currently feel about procrastination, and then elaborate on how you procrastinate, or what you do, or when you do it, etc. So all you're trying to do is moving it from your mind into a piece of paper, and that can be powerful in itself, because by getting rid of it out of your mind and onto paper, one, it can force it into the front of your mind on the basis of your now understanding it more, and then 2, when you write something out, it can be a powerful way of resolving an issue. So B, take a second sheet of paper and ask yourself, what would be the exact opposite of that? Then on the top of the page, write, I am so happy and grateful now that, and whatever it is that you're trying to do. And then this is something that we encourage. So again, this is like an affirmation. I'm so happy and grateful that, and whatever it is. I'm so happy and grateful now that I've set up my business. I'm so happy and grateful now that I bought a house. I'm so happy and grateful now that I bought the car of my dreams. Whatever it is that you're trying to move in, this is just getting it out from the head onto paper. And again, it's the affirmations like what we spoke about yesterday. Write it out in a detailed statement that are the opposite of things you wrote on the first sheet. When you are finished, burn or shred the first sheet of paper. So again, like what we were speaking about yesterday when we talked about the 6 steps, this is like one of the steps that we talk about. All you're doing is getting out of your head onto the piece of paper of what the reason why you're procrastinating, and elaborate on your procrastination. And then in the second step, you're getting a second piece of paper and you're writing out then what it is that you're going to do. I'm so happy and grateful now that, and whatever it is, right? So read and rewrite what you wrote on the second sheet every day until you notice that you're no longer procrastinating. So again, I emphasize this is an affirmation. Because you're repeating it to yourself, you're writing it out and repeating it to yourself on a regular basis. It's going from your conscious mind, you're impressing it upon your subconscious mind. And again, that's what we talked about yesterday. It's where you have your current, your thoughts, you're changing your thought. And then because of your current feelings, you're changing your feeling. So I hope everybody's happy with what they're hearing. I have a workbook on exactly everything that we've gone through. I'm happy to give it to anybody if they'd like to private message me or send me a message through the comment box. I'm happy to do so. Thank you.